some chickens.
My grandmother was a joy. She used to play pretend with me. She would invite me to her tea parties and let me carry her purse and gave me a name. My name was Miss Dorcas. And one day she invited me to her tea party and told me she was going to tell me her fortune. My fortune, not hers. She said that my mother and a nice young man was going to come and take me back to the city of Toledo. And I was pretty disappointed. We came back to Toledo and I was so lonely. No toys, no friends. And my mother wasn't real maternalistic, didn't read to me, and I was pretty lonesome. And one day my mother turned on a little box called the radio. And from that point on, my life was a joy. There was music. There was the Grand Ole Opry on Saturday night. Anybody remember? There was Tommy Dorsey. Name some more. Anyway, the wonderful world, and then all the beautiful voices. There was Kate Smith. What is that noise?
Whenever you in there, that's that.
Oh. Okay. Well, we'll try it this way. How's that? There was who sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow? Judy Garland. Kate Smith with God Bless America. Who was the cowboy that sang Home on the Range? There was all these wonderful, wonderful stories. But what I loved, programs, but what I loved most were the two programs. One was called Fibber McGee and Molly, and the other one was the Goldbergs. They were my favorite. Now I gotta tell you about old time radio. It's really cool because all of you would have been involved. You would have painted the backdrop. You would have said what the backdrop was going to be, what that house or that range was going to look like. And anyway, it was a joy. And with Fibber McGee and Molly, the sound effects were exquisite. Anybody remember Fibber McGee would open the closet door and everything would fall out of that mess until you heard the last shoe drop. And then there was a wonderful Molly Goldberg. She gave me the joy of accents and comedy. She would get her hubby off to work in the morning, clear the breakfast table, make a hot pot of coffee, and invite her neighbor over for a coffee chat. And she would call, the houses were close together at that point. She would call over, so, Rosalie, darling, come over or swallow a cup. Anyway, I also found that my husband loved old-time radio also. And I have to tell you a story about right here, that happened right here at StoryPoint. I've been here 3 years, and the first year and a half I was lucky enough to have my hubby with me. But he got sick and we had to move back to enhanced living. And one of the nice things back there is you get 3 meals a day. And early on when he was doing pretty well, I'd wheel him down to breakfast. And one morning, he opened his arms like he was Al Jolson and was saying, "Good morning, everybody. Good morning to ya. I woke up bright and early just to howdy do ya. It's the Don McNeil Show," which was on old-time radio. Anyway, one of the things that I loved was Molly Goldberg's accent. And from that, I learned to enjoy the accents of a lot of places. There was the Swedish people that moved to Minnesota. And there was Lena and Oli. And they weren't getting along very well. And so they decided to get a divorce. And the judge called Oli to the bench. And he said, "Now, Oli, I've awarded Lena $2,300 a month. And Ole thought about it for a while, and he said, "Oh, Judge, that's really nice of you." He said, "And I'll throw in a few bucks of my own." And then with March, we got to tell a couple of Irish stories. There was Michael and Kathleen. Now, I want you to know that Kathleen was also known as Chatty Cathy. And so they were had celebrated St. Patty's Day, and they were heading home on this curvy country road, and Michael was going a bit fast. And the law stopped him and said, Michael, you're going a bit fast, you know." And he said, "And also, did you know that you lost your wife 8 miles back?" And he looked at the heavens and he said, "Oh, thanks be to Jesus. I thought I'd gone stone dead." And then there was a fellow in the next little town that worked at the Guinness Brewery, the Guinness Beer Brewery. And one afternoon, the Father O'Toole knocked on his wife's door, and he said, "I'm so sorry to be telling you, but Michael drowned in vat 3. And after she composed herself, she said, oh my, did he go quickly?" And the father said, "Well, no, not really. He jumped back in 3 times before he passed." And then there was a little Scottish lady, Mrs. McFarland, and she had, not Mrs., Miss McFarland, she had saved her money to go into this wonderful nursing home when she got older. And that happened, and the first night she wheeled up to the bar and she said to the bartender, "I would like 7 shots of scotch and a shot of water." And the bartender kind of smiled. He said, "Miss McFarland, I think you mean you want 7 shots of water and a shot of scotch." She said, young man, I know me business. I can hold me scotch, but can't hold me water." And then there's last and my favorite. I don't know where he was from, because he was just a plain old Ben, but a wonderfully kind man in his hometown. And his buddies decided, his Tuesday morning breakfast buddies, decided that they wanted to treat him to a fine celebration for his 80th birthday. So they picked him up in a limousine and they took him to this beautiful new restaurant a few miles down the road. And the next morning, his wife found him lying on the sofa, still with his nice suit on, and she said, "Larry, did you have a good time?" He said, "Maggie, I had a wonderful time, but my head hurt so bad. All the guys had to buy me a drink, and I didn't want to be impolite." And he said, he said, "But wait a minute." He said, "Maggie, I want to tell you, that restaurant was superb. They had gold chandeliers, a gold bar, and even a gold urinal." And she thought, this old guy has really lost it. And she happened to notice that he had a business card in his pocket. She pulled it out, and it was to the restaurant. So she called and decided to check, and she said, "I would like to talk to the owner, please." "I'm the owner, madam." "Well, I want to check. My husband was in your establishment last night and said he had a wonderful time. The steak was good, but some strange things. He said you had gold chandeliers." "Well, madam, you know we couldn't afford gold, but we have them. Finest brass money can buy. And yes, we do have trims around the chandeliers." "Well," she said, excuse me. She said, he said that you had a gold bar." "Well, that's right, madam. It does look gold. but it's still the finest brass money could buy. And she kind of waited a minute and she said, "Sir," she said, "I'll have to ask you. He said you had a gold journal," and he kind of laughed. He covered the phone and he said, "Just a minute, madam." He said, "Sam, I think I know who peed in your saxophone." I have a favor to ask of you all. I would love to have some of your memories, not now, but during the week, of your memories of the Grand Ole Opry and the great old time radio. Thank you.